Dear friends, or good evening. It's actually 7:19 here in Kyiv. Today is Kyiv Day. I just posted a small video message basically for my Instagram, but I put it over here for you guys as well. Um, think about that, 1,544 years old. The United States is about to celebrate a 250th birthday. And I live in a country where the capital city, the birthday is 1,544 years. Americans. Good to see you, Karen and Gary. And as our other friends come in and say hello, I know a few more people will arrive. This thing sends out this notifications. I also didn't announce I was going on. I was actually out here thinking about making a message to my Instagram audience about the type of people who come up and make such ridiculous comments on there. But in the end, I said, nah, I'd rather just go over to Substack, say hi to our wonderful friends, not only in America, Canada, Europe, other parts of the world. And thank you for your subscription, your support, your friendship for friends. Um, Working on a massive article that's now so big, I have to break it back down. And I told you about it a little bit about yesterday. The discussion that started with some people. Hold on, I try to get these things off my screen. The discussion that started on Twitter with some Polish accounts, um, basically attacking Ukrainians over the Volhynia massacre of 1943. And I talked about this yesterday a little bit, but I'm gonna continue. So, in 24 hours, I've assembled about 50,000 words. I probably got 2 hours of sleep, and I had to work all the way back to the year 1340 to tell the story of Polish suppression of Ukrainian identity. Think about 1340. The United States wasn't even a dream, a vision. Um, European settlers, even the history of maybe Leif Erikson and those guys didn't exist yet. All of that, and here, civilization has been going on for a long, long time. But in the case of the Polish argument, it's gotten so bad on Twitter with this. And I'm not going to say it's the Polish people, because that was actually one of the things that got said today that was really sort of weird. Hold on, move my tripod a little bit. There we go. And yes, happy Kyiv Day. Slava Ukraini, Heroim Slava. I Pizdec Rosyjskiej Federacji. But yeah, the comments are now getting really not only hateful, but they are getting violent. There are polls today that were attacking my Ukrainian friends, saying the Russians should finish the job. And this is very good why I don't have infinite resources, because if I had infinite resources, every person who talks to another human being like that would be running for the rest of their lives for wishing such hatred on people. I just really think it's completely inhuman the way people, through their disinhibition online, wish absolutely gross things on other human beings, safe from behind their keyboard. Every one of those accounts that did so was hiding behind a name, a pseudonym, an anonymous bunch of characters, right? While being simultaneously boldly Polish. And the reason why I wrote that why I'm writing this article, this is now almost book level. It's too many words already. I mean, book is 80,000 to 100,000 words. I'm already a published author. Is that it's really an extensive history. We always talk about what Russians did to Ukrainians, but the Polish were not so great to Ukrainians either. And there were a few areas where I had to do a little bit more patience on the dive. And I am gonna publish this. I just have to decide to break it down probably in, I don't know, 4 parts. I mean, it's essentially 12 chapters of data. Ultimately, I mean, if it were a book, it'd be 12 chapters, and it's a bunch of very specific components that bring together the oppression of the Ukrainian people. And I think it's really important upon the Polish people right now to call out the hateful amongst them. If you are Polish and you have people in Poland who say horrible things to Ukrainians, about Volhynia especially, let me give you a bit of feedback as an American whose history for America is filled with genocide, chattel slavery, the driving out period of the Chinese, the basically theft of land not only for Native Americans but basically the immigration policies that followed. I don't come from wealthy people at all. I basically come from poor people. So from a class warfare point of view, I know where I come from. But I also know that I live in a specific ethnic class that gave me things that other people didn't have. And historically, I know that my people were not treated as bad as other people. The English blood that flows in me knows what the English did across the world. The Czech blood in me remembers what the Habsburgs did, eliminating Bohemian language. As a Scot and Irish blood that I have in me, I know what the English did to Scots, especially to Irish, prohibiting from speaking their language, and the oppression of culture in favor of imperial colonialism. And that's why it's important that Polish people who have any sense of integrity say, we can acknowledge that Volhynia was a terrible event, 1943, but we also know that there was 24 years of oppression, active, full oppression of Ukrainians. And that's on top of hundreds of years of Polish control over the future of lives of Ukrainian people. In 1340, when Galicia and Volhynia were invaded, over the next period of time, land that had belonged to Ukrainians was put under the control of the Polish. It happened again later in the 1500s. You had uprisings that got basically, historically put into the records from the Polish point of view, like Khmelnytsky. Bogdan Khmelnytsky was one of the first very important uprisings, 1500s. Forget the precise year that started, but mid 1500s. And although it's very important to remember that the NKVD and the Russians were worse in many ways, if you can't put yourself in the position of people who lived in between empires, then go get a history lesson. Because it's inhuman to talk to Ukrainians the way I saw for the last nearly 48 hours of these particular Polish radicals. And one of them dared say to me today when I called out the royal we. I don't like when someone says we this, we that, when they obviously speak for themselves. It's an account with like barely 100 followers. If you have to say we, you know that you're not much. There are times where the phrase we, like if I say, I'm here in Kyiv, we thank you for your support. I'm pretty sure I can get away with that one. I doubt I'm going to find a lot of resistance in that. But when I said we, another Polish account comes along and says, he's saying it because we Polish all think the same about this. No, you actually don't. I know because a big chunk of the research that's going into my compounded article, I'm not going to publish it as a book. I'll put it on Substack, is heavily drawn from Polish historians. Polish historians who you will see in the writing did the right thing. They said history should be accounted for accurately. And when you say we all think the same about this, that's an insult to your own people. Because, like, as an American, I know we don't all think the same about anything. Here in Ukraine, not everyone thinks the same thing about Volhynia or OUN or UPA or Poland or any of that. They maybe feel the same about Russia for the most part, but The idea of someone arrogantly also the other account had like no followers, like 120 is nothing. I have 20,000 and I'm not really all that big of a follower account. I know people who have millions of followers. But when you have like no crowd and you come up and say we, and then you say we believe, and especially when I see some of those accounts attacking my Ukrainian friends who were merely stating a historical fact. The historical fact was it wasn't just the Russians who oppressed the Ukrainians. Okay. It wasn't just the Russians. That would be a very easy history to deal with for the most part. Because then you would just say, Russians bad, and that's the end of the story. But we know that way before 1917, so like I said, starting from 1340, again from 1500, I could go on and on. There's in this article, when I finally get it done, and it's going to take me a while because I kept running into very important data I think everyone should understand. Imagine you're an Orthodox Ukrainian. And now, in order to continue to teach, to continue your vocation, to continue owning your property, you have to become Catholic because that was what the Poles wanted. You had to speak only Polish. You couldn't speak your own language, or you had to give up your status, your property, your occupation, or vocation. It's not freedom. And anyone who speaks ill towards Ukrainians with all that history on the table, really bad person, really broken person to be talking that way. And I'm a history junkie. I love to dive into history. It is the most rich topic that I can never run out of. And yet I get to wake up and I go to that toxic platform X. I have to respond to messages, friends, son, at the very least. And I look in there and they didn't really come after mine, or maybe because I have a tendency sometimes to put accounts on mute instead of block. That way they don't really know. They just talk into the void. But um, unironically, I'm a historical militant. Way before I could ever be a national militant or any of these other categories of militant, I really would definitely apply massive penalties on people who distort history. If I could be godlike, I mean, I would just punish the hell out of people for flattening history and distorting history and erasing history. I can't stand it when people lie about what happened. History is one of the easiest topics in my estimations to learn. I mean, it's not physics. It's not, the most complicated medical science. It's understanding context of events. And it's also nearly impossible to truly understand all sorts of history because there's so many ingredients that are missing. Just like even in a single day of what we experience, I have no way of quantifying all the things I chose to tune out and chose to ignore or focus in on and pay attention to. And history has the same problem. What was interesting is what gets written down. What seemed to be consequential gets written down. And we all know the adage to the victors, goes the ability to write history. That's who gets to determine what the story is. But we have plenty of stories from the 20th century of what happened in this area. And although Volhynia should really, it should be settled. It should be something where I look forward to a day when both Ukraine and Poland can have a solidarity where they said we have successfully accounted for that time period and we put this behind us. But there's a thing that the Polish who keep attacking Ukrainians are not understanding, and anyone who jumps in on this side, is that all Ukrainians are trying to say is, but the timeline didn't start in 1943. And no, we're not going to eliminate all the things that happened before this moment. Why would you expect this of us? And what they get in return is more shouting, more insults, or even going further, Polish people wishing that Russia would come around and end the Bandera thing. Stepan Bandera was killed in the 1950s, for fuck's sake, you know? And yet we have people in Poland wishing that Russians would do more harm to Ukraine for some reason that is part of propaganda model in Poland. So it's a right wing sentiment. I'm actually familiar with where it comes from. And this is why I'm gonna go back to the comment earlier. I said that where someone said that, when I said, "Who's this we?" Are you royal or something? And when someone else says, "Well, we all think the same." I have a lot of Polish friends who I've gotten to know over the last couple of years. They do not feel that way. They support Ukrainians. They've even said we could have done better historically, and it's really something I'm not going to let go of. And I will get this article finished. It takes a while. Right now, I just have to finish dividing it. Actually, it's done. I kept finding a new component to put in it, and like I said, it's at 50,000 words right now, so it's just too many. Have to decide how to distill it down for Substack because I think the articles are already too long anyway. Um, the sun just came out. Finally, it's been raining all day. Very, bleh, like dresh, as we say in Scottish. Very dresh. Kind of not so great, but now the sky is blue. People are out and about trying to enjoy a little bit of their weekend before the week kicks in. And there was some activity of Russian drones and missiles to the south, but so far in the city today, it's been quiet here in Kyiv, and hopefully it will stay that way. I've got a lot of, what's the temperature? I don't really know right now, but it's actually going to get warmer. We were in the high 40s, right around 50 last night in the middle of the night. I got up and actually had to put some thermals on because I noticed that I was feeling it. And I'm naturally wired for cold weather, but I was not in the mood anymore. But it's actually going to warm up just a little bit to the 70s or forgive me, I'm not thinking in my Celsius at the moment. Forgive me. I do switch back and forth a little bit, but I had to be very much in one or the other. Um, and actually, it is interesting that at the last part of May, we had temperatures in the high 40s where it was frigid. I'm walking around in a sweater. Like you see this in the video I just posted from a couple of hours ago. Uh, yeah, it was nice and chilly. A lot of my friends here want to say thank you, as I often share with you. I was at the cafe, and when I talk about Substack and the support audience, my Ukrainian friends, they don't really think about the outside world as much because of what's going on in front of us. But to hear an American at the table writing and working on stories about Ukraine and then, asking what you guys are up to and what we could do, they really appreciate you. So for this week, I'm still waiting on my super mystery guest. I will know more about my timing for part 2 of the interview. I have part 1 finished. I'm still waiting to see if you guys are going to give me any clues on who you think the mystery guest is going to be. Um, I've said before, it's not about Ukraine. It is not about my national security work. It is how do I want to describe what this is? It's a creative, uh, or it's a creation that is now many many years old, and I'm going to interview someone that I have. How do I want to say this? I have a tie with that you will hear when you finally see the interview. It does associate with something in my life many years ago. Um, I'm trying to give clues. Okay, so I will say that part 1 is the interview with the son who directed a great documentary about his father, who also made a very, very great film. There. Now, the mystery guest, well, actually, both of them are mystery guests because you don't know who either one of them are. But the father wound up making a film that it has an impact that we will talk about. And I would be very interested to see if you'll figure out who it was. But I'm trying to think. I've been trying to think of what clue could I give you. So since we're getting so close to this, and I'm just really not going to like drag it out too much long because we'll have the interview done shortly, is at the end of the film, the person I will be interviewing um, confronts, for lack of a better term, I'll say the bad guy, and says, you've gone too far. And now, um, it's all over. It's all over. Okay. Um, he reminds him his mission is a failure, no less. He tells the bad guy, he goes, your mission is a failure. And so now we will return, you know, and he basically takes control. So that's kind of how the movie ends for the most part, if that gives you any clues. Oh boy, that's going to be cryptic enough. I thought about that one all morning. So I think that's just cryptic enough. But I'll take everyone. Can you give us a nationality? No, I can give you guesses. It's not Ukrainian. Um, so no, I'll give you that. But that's it. I might come back on a little bit later. I just was sitting out here on the balcony. It looked too beautiful. And the now that the sky is cleared and our beautiful that doesn't help. Oh my God. This film did something no other films did. That's one of the biggest clues right now. This film did something much bigger that no, Don says Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden didn't make a film about his father making a film. I don't know what that means. Hunter Biden. I did see Hunter Biden is on Substack, but I don't really have a lot of need to talk to Hunter Biden. Yeah, but anyway, so this film did have it did something that no other film did. Um, it also has 50 years history now, and that's what the other film's about. Yeah, so that's the clue. Send me your messages, and I don't really I don't really know what to give people. Someone says, "Can you give a subscription?" Well, all the articles are free anyway. Subscriptions about helping to support the journalism. I will never put anything behind a paywall. I just not that wired, so that won't really do anything. But I'll think of some cool thing. Maybe you get a shout out or something. I don't know. But anyway, no, 1975. Actually, this came out 1 year and I had it precisely down how many weeks. 1 year and 5 weeks, I think, before Star Wars. Because someone guessed Star Wars the other day, something the other, and I go, nope. This was 1 year and like 5, 6 weeks before. So that's the clue. We'll pop back on later. Maybe you guys come up with something. You can message me. If you're a paid subscriber, I've already said paid subscribers will get additional clues in DMs. If you message me, I'll play a clue game back and forth with you. And if you guess, my only request is that you um, keep it cool. Like, don't say it to everyone else if you figure it out. If you say it now, but I can't really see the screen because somehow the heat is on my screen. So now my screen is at like 25% glowing. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. But this person, yeah, I'm going to say ahead of time that the way that arrived in my life, it saved my life. Probably it really did. And I hadn't thought of that until I saw the documentary was out. And that's why I reached out and I said, you know what? I'm one of those people also that was affected by this. Interesting. So I wrote, got in touch with, the documentary maker, his son, and we're getting along great. That part's already edited. It's great. And did I mention that the documentary goes on demand in a couple of days? That's it. See you soon. Happy Kyiv Day. З днем народження, Києву. Я люблю тебе. До побачення. Слава Україні, героям слава і пиздець Російської Федерації.